Hello and welcome to Cyberside Chats. My name is Sherri Davidoff. I'm the founder of LMG Security.
And I am Matt Durrin, the Director of Training and Research for LMG Security.
And today we're going to talk about the Salesforce drift breach. Wait, I'm getting deja vu.
Again? Really?
Again, but more happened.
But yeah, it got bigger.
I mean, this is basically the move-it of 2025.
Oh,
right?
it totally is, yeah.
At this point, hundreds of companies have been impacted. The estimates currently are about 700.
Yeah, Google estimates about 700 companies at least have been impacted by this.
Who does this include? It's
Palo Alto and Zscaler and
Proofpoint,
Bugcrowd and Proofpoint and like...
Wealthsimple, a financial related
They're
firm,
on there too,
a
yeah.
fintech of some kind. And in a lot of these, highly sensitive customer information has been stolen. So the data breach notifications are really just beginning.
Right.
Because right now, all of those companies are probably scrambling to do an inventory and see what they had that was impacted. And over the next weeks and months, we're going to see that information released.
Yeah, it'll take some time though. I mean, we saw this with Blackbaud, we saw this with MoveIt. Like, you have to do the investigation before the investigation to figure out what actual data you even had in the platform when it was actually compromised. So
to back up for a second, Drift is a chatbot that integrates with Salesforce and other platforms.
Yep.
So even though the majority of customers that are notifying have Salesforce implementations, it's not just people with Salesforce implementations. Drift also integrates with Google Workspace and other SaaS products. So for organizations that were using Drift, they may well have been impacted.
Right, and I think we talked about this before, but when you think about like Drift, what it would need to have access to act as like the AI chatbot or customer service rep basically for your platform, it needs to have access to a lot of data.
Right.
And so if you can compromise Drift, you can basically compromise the entire database that you have in Salesforce at that point.
And that data gets exfiltrated out. And so what we talked about in the last Cyberside Chats on this topic was that there are ways to monitor and even prevent large-scale data exfiltration from your Salesforce instances and other SaaS platforms.
Right.
But many organizations have not actually set that up or are taking advantage of those
Well, I don't
tools.
think a lot of people thought that would be a threat at this point, right?
I mean, if it's on the internet and it's just sitting out there on the corner, just protected by a little password or an OAuth token, it's high risk.
It does.
It's high risk.
Well, I mean, okay, so we talked about the victims a little bit. So why does that matter? Like, why does the victim list actually impact what we're talking about today?
Well, sure. I mean, some of it is the ripple effects because the type of data that's stolen makes everybody who's been impacted at a higher risk of security issues themselves.
Right, yeah.
So number one, there is just sensitive customer information. But also, we found out recently that Wealthsimple was impacted. They were one of the first ones that announced that government ID numbers, for example, were stolen.
Yeah, good call.
And I sat back and was like, oh, why would people have that? Why would a company have that in Salesforce for sales? Of course. They're a financial services company. They have to validate customer identities. That's part of the Know Your Customer requirements.
Yeah.
Ironically, often things we do for security purposes increase our risk. I don't know if you remember when I found out that my eye doctor, they said, because of the red flags identity theft rule, we have to scan your ID and put it in our dinky little computer system, which is probably not well secured. And
terrifying.
I was like, why do you have to do this? But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of times security precautions can mean that you're storing more data, which is, I like to think of data as hazardous material. It's very, very powerful.
Oh, I mean, I bought fertilizer at Lowe's 2 weeks ago, and I had to scan my driver's license to do it. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, no,
okay,
it's all over the place.
We're
Anyway,
getting a little
off
off
on a tangent.
We're getting a little off in the weeds.
Anyway.
Okay, so the scope is expanding. We're learning more about it. We are also learning about how the Drift Salesforce attacks happened.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's big.
What was the root cause, Matt?
Well, I mean, the root cause came down to a compromised GitHub account, which is not... I know,
we already talked about this. I'm so bored of compromised GitHub accounts.
I know, but they keep happening. That's the big problem. And the bigger issue is when you get access to a GitHub account, you get access to the source code for applications. And that is the branches, it's the pulls, it's the production environment, it's everything that you would need to get access to that. And when we look at how these applications are put together, especially in some of the, I guess, less sophisticated applications, I mean, they're doing things like hard coding keys to things like Amazon Web Services or something like that.
And so that's what happened in this case, right?
It seems like that's what happened, yeah.
So we know that the attackers somehow, we don't know how, got into GitHub, SalesLoft's GitHub repository. SalesLoft is a manufacturer of Drift.
Right.
And once they got in, they were able to somehow jump into the company's AWS repositories.
Right, and speculation is there was a hard-coded key somewhere in their software, and that would make sense. I mean, it's a pretty easy thing for developers to do. It's a common pitfall.
We have been talking about this all year. Check out our podcast on secrets with Tom Cole. We'll put a link in the show notes. But yeah, secrets and GitHub repositories are an epidemic at this point. And they increase systemic risk for all of us because in this case, it was a secret that was stored in a GitHub repository of a third-party integrated app that led to these breaches.
Right. Well, and this happened back in March too. Like this wasn't like a recent hack. It's been in place for a while.
Walk us through the timeline, Matt.
So we saw March as the
2025
March 2025 as the kind of like originating intrusion into the environment.
Right.
And it wasn't until August that we actually saw like actual malicious action that we know of at this point.
Yeah, so in June, so in March they get access to GitHub, and then they jump from there to AWS, and they also start to do reconnaissance on Salesloft's Drift environment, and they steal the OAuth tokens. Was that June that they stole the tokens?
June was supposedly when they stole the tokens,
Yep. And then August 8th through 18th was when they actively misused those tokens, gained access to customer environments, and started exfiltrating the data.
Right. So think about the dwell time there, though. I mean, they got in March, and then 4 months later, they get access to AWS. So they were in there for a while, and no one noticed it.
Right. And they started exfiltrating.
And then 2 months later, they we actually get the notification for it, and long time.
It often, I mean, what breaches are happening right now that we're going to find out about in 6 months?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It's scary when you think about it.
It is.
But anyway, thanks for walking us through the timeline.
Totally.
So tell us some more about the GitHub risks, though, because this is not the only major GitHub-related incident we have seen in September 2025.
Oh, no. We've seen GitHub as a target for a while at this point in time, and it makes sense why that would be. When we talk about GitHub, I mean, there has been a push from a lot of malicious actor groups to go after software collaboration repositories, like things like GitHub.
Yeah.
And one of the big things that we see there is they're going after, initial versions of software or older versions of applications, things that, people are working on to try to get out to production, but are not really set up to be secure at that point in time. And we see things like hard-coded passwords, hard-coded secrets.
Matt, tell us about the hot news, GhostAction.
Oh, GhostAction, yeah. So GhostAction is the name for a group that has been able to compromise over 3,000 secrets from GitHub at this point.
Right.
And they're finding them because they're doing just basic like credential stuffing attacks and things like that. I mean, none of this is super high tech. It is basic hygiene on those accounts that is leading to that downfall. So not having MFA or not having a good password. The basic things that we say to secure those accounts. And
so just this month, GitGuardian announced that they discovered the GhostAction attacks.
Yep.
And over 300 GitHub accounts were compromised. Over 800 repositories were hacked.
Right, yeah.
And the attackers got in, planted malicious GitHub Actions workflows that then exfiltrated information. So they're getting good at using GitHub.
Yeah, no, they're automating that process.
In the case of Salesloft and Drift, they actually created a guest account just so that they could have that persistent access. So they're targeting GitHub, they're leveraging it, and then they're actually taking it to the next level. They're engaging in follow-on attacks and seeing how far they can get.
Well, and this really gets down to a root problem that we've seen for years at this point, and that's the secure software development process. How is it that your developers, the people that you trust to actually build your software, are securing what they're doing with your infrastructure at that point? And even if they're testing and uploading to GitHub as a fork or something like that, and they're including a hard-coded password or a key, that is a risk. I mean, that allows people access to things like your Amazon Web Services databases or anything else that might hold your sensitive data. So, yeah, it's tough. You have to pay attention to it.
Yeah, so we've talked before on this podcast about specifically GitHub breaches. So check those out, our previous podcasts as well for tips. But what I'm hoping we can talk about today is give you a checklist for how to handle these really complex SaaS platform breaches. Because often you may not even know you're impacted until weeks or even months after the initial hack has been announced.
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's not that complex. I mean, it's
but the response is
complex.
The response
is complex, but treating it like you have to treat it like your own internal network. Like you have to secure it the same way.
Right, but if you look at MoveIt, which is a great example, we saw MoveIt announcing there's a breach, and then customers of MoveIt announced. But frankly, a lot of those corporations and organizations had other corporate customers. And so they had to take the time to inventory, notify their corporate customers. And so weeks or months later, those corporate customers are getting notifications that sensitive information was stolen. And so those corporate customers then have to go do their own investigations and announce.
I mean, I'm just picturing like dominoes falling in my head at this point.
And that's why we are still seeing, like over a year later, actually almost 2 years later, we have still been seeing fallout from the MOVEit attacks. There's still, like a year, 2 years later, there are still companies and people finding out that they were impacted.
Oh yeah, we just saw a big one a couple of months ago. Like, no, it's popping up all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're gonna, no question, we're gonna see the same type of ripple effects in the SalesLoft drift breaches. So right now, the direct customers of SalesLoft are finding out that they've been impacted right now and over the next few weeks and months. And then they all need to do an investigation, and then they will be notifying other people. So what do you do if you find out that your organization has been impacted? Let's go through the steps. Okay?
Sure, yeah. I mean, first and foremost, I mean, you need to treat it like it's an incident. Like, it is an incident. Like, you need to go through, you need to do a data inventory, you need a forensic response to it. Like, you need to understand what your actual risk is at this point.
Even if it's a third party that's been breached, it's your incident, and you should follow your incident response processes.
Yeah.
Second, notify your cyber insurance provider if you have one. If you don't have one, get one. But there's a few reasons to notify your cyber insurer right away. Number one, often in cases like this, cyber insurers are handling dozens, if not hundreds, of very similar cases. And they may have a relationship with the vendor. They may have indicators of compromise that are secret or maybe not public. They may have templates for dealing with it and responding to it. They may also have leverage with the vendor. Sometimes it's very hard to get information from the vendor like, hey, what exactly was impacted? And insurers, because they often represent so many organizations, sometimes they have more clout and they can just get a better response and get more information. So I would just encourage everybody, if you have a third-party provider incident, notify your cyber insurer right away and make sure you've got them on notice and you're taking advantage of any breach response tools you have.
Well, I mean, we've had students in our class at Black Hat who were victims of like Blackbot or something like that, and years later they still have no idea what data was actually impacted.
Yes, that was a tough case.
That's a tough one.
That was a tough case.
Next, make sure that you are engaging external support. So, I mean, if this is something that your team is not trained for, which most IT and security teams are not.
Even if they are. Again,
hit that external support,
Yeah, economies of scale. Outside vendors, like outside incident responders and outside PR firms are probably going to be dealing with dozens of these exact cases already.
Oh, sure,
Take advantage of that. And honestly, do you know the biggest mistake I see in incident response?
What would that be?
What do you think? Okay, I'll just tell you.
You just go ahead. I mean, I have a list, but like...
Okay. Well, the one I was thinking of is not engaging outside counsel.
Oh, that's a big one,
because often inside counsel says, no, we're very cyber savvy, we've got it. But there's a couple problems with that. If you're only using your inside counsel and you make a mistake, you're on the hook.
Yeah.
If you talk to outside counsel and you say, do I need to notify? And outside counsel writes you a little note that says you don't need to notify, then that's a lot more protection than if you decide yourself, I don't think we need to notify. Uber is a great example
what was
of that.
We'll
go into the Uber cases.
There you go. Yeah, that's a separate podcast.
Yeah, anyway, so engage external support. Thank you, Matt.
No, it's super helpful.
Do you want to do the next one since I talked so much?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I mean, the next one comes down to how you manage your access to external databases when you have integrated apps like Drift or anything else. And that is, you need to rotate your keys. Make sure that you are not leaving an API key just sitting out there in the wind for someone to take advantage of. Because remember, the API key is the master key to that environment.
Right.
They don't need a username. They don't need a password. They bypass MFA. And if your API keys are stolen, I mean, that is a huge deal. I think Amazon has a best practice of rotating every like 60 to 90 days. There's automated ways you can do this. For other applications, just make it like part of your patching cycle, basically. Rotate those keys out so that you're not sitting there with a piece of, phishable or stealable information that could gain access to that environment.
Yeah. Great points. Thank you.
There you go.
Inventory your data. I say this with a grain of salt. If you're trying to inventory your data and it's in a cloud environment that's been hacked, you may not have access to it right away.
Yeah.
In this case, I think people do. Salesforce has been up. Drift is down. The Drift chatbot has just been taken down and hasn't come back up yet.
So SalesLoft is back up, but Drift is still banned from operating with Salesforce, and I mean for good reason at this point.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate for the companies that were relying on it, but their competitors are probably really happy. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you really want to, I really want to encourage everybody, inventory your data in advance. Don't expect to have it available in an incident. And if you do have it available in an incident, do you really want to pay out the nose to a team of emergency lawyers to do this after hours on the weekends? Because that gets real expensive.
Yeah, when we do IR tabletops on this kind of thing, we usually refer to that as a hair on fire moment.
Oh, yes.
And we talk about how we want to avoid those.
Yes,
and
we do.
Yeah, inventorying your data ahead of time, knowing what your risk actually looks like with those applications is incredibly, essential to your actual response. Because you don't want to be doing this in a panic, and you don't want to be doing it last minute. As you just mentioned, like hiring a firm to do it for you is like insanely expensive. So yeah, just keep track of what you have up there.
Yeah, at least get a general idea.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally, search for attacker activity. You want to make sure they're not still in your environment, and you want to understand how they got in and things like that. So I know you've done a lot of threat hunting, Matt. Do you want to speak to how this is done in the cloud?
Yeah, with a lot of these platforms, there are log files that are available that can be, parsed to see if there's something weird happening in the environment. And what a lot of people don't do, and it's because it's the cloud and because people just, for whatever reason, assume the cloud is kind of like impenetrable at this point, which it's obviously not. They just don't pay attention to them. But for systems like Salesforce, like Drift, like Microsoft 365, Google Workspace, yada, yada, yada. There's a whole list of them. You can pipe those logs down into something like a SIM or a syslog server, or you can pipe them out to a third-party provider that will monitor them for you.
Monitor and analyze just as though it was on your on-prem environment. A lot of people just miss the cloud.
Again,
we've got it integrated.
There is no cloud.
It's just other people's
computers, yes.
And on that note, thank you so much for tuning in to this week's Cyberside Chats. This was about how one hacked GitHub account led to one of the biggest SaaS platform breaches we have seen, and this is only the beginning. So stay tuned for more. I know we will be. And hope to see you next week for Cyberside Chats.
Perfect.